Over.
All right, welcome back to the show this week where we have an outstanding guest. Our guest today is Nora Osman. She is the founder and CEO of Norvana, an advisory firm focused on transforming organizations through customer experience and human-centered leadership. With over 25 years of experience across healthcare, insurance, and technology, she has led large-scale service transformations impacting tens of thousands of people. She's known for helping organizations turn what she calls zero moments, breakdowns in trust and experience, into hero moments that elevate people, culture, and results. She's also the author of a new book, Zero to Hero: The Human Experience in Leadership and Business Transformation, a powerful playbook for leaders looking to simplify complexity, lead with intention, and create meaningful impact in moments that matter most. Nora, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation with me today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. This is gonna be fun.
And I told you this before we started recording. Like I read the book here recently, and that was when I decided to reach out to you because I'm a leadership, like I love leadership. I love everything about leadership. I'm a big John Maxwell fan, just went through that process. Um, I think leadership is very transformational in groups, in people. And when I read your book, I thought, man, this is really good. Like your life experiences through learning, the different levels of leadership has been, really, really good. And I thought it came off really, really, really good in the book. Okay. Now, I want to say this, and I'll put all the link to the book and all that in the show notes so people can go there and buy it. I've never started a podcast. This will be about episode 300 and something. And I've never started with my ending questions, but I'm going to start with my ending questions today because I am 100% sure after reading your book that you are not going to have an issue answering any of these because I just believe that, the level of leadership skills is really, really cool. So these are going to be very quick, and then we're going to dive into some other stuff, okay? But I just want some quick answers, thoughts that come to your head, right away.
Okay.
One leadership trait every great leader must have.
Authenticity.
Mm, that didn't take long, did it?
Well, it's ABCs of leadership. I wrote about that, right?
I read about it, right? Authenticity, boldness, and compassion. I got it.
You got
Okay.
that.
Second
Yep.
one. One thing that destroys customer experience faster than anything else.
Assumptions.
Mm. What do you mean? Explain.
People assuming that they know things. They don't verify. They don't ask. They don't lean in. They don't try to learn.
Mm. I love that. One daily habit that separates elite leaders.
Getting stuff done. Good
Getting
stuff done.
stuff done. GSD. I like that. I like that. Very good.
Executing. Yes. Uh,
Zero to hero. What's one question leaders should ask themselves every day?
oh, that's a really hard one. How have I moved the needle today?
Ooh, very good. And I think this, Nora, and I don't know, where you fall on this, but when you say how to move the needle, I also think that one thing that leaders do probably better than other people is they take time to reflect back on, the things that's happened throughout the day or the things that happened throughout the week. And because everything's not highlights, like we do mess up some things, but they do a great job of reflecting on what has happened and then contemplating or thinking, how can I do that better next time? Like how can I make that communication or that talk or that be better the next time than before? Because if we don't contemplate on things in the past that we've done great, done poorly, done whatever, we tend to do the same thing all the time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, moving the needle, I've got to, think about how did I move it? Did I move it well enough? How can I move it better? Right. Like I think that's a trait too that would be important down the road.
But they're also aware that they are work in progress.
Mm,
They're
most certainly.
always going to be learning something. They're always going to be making a mistake. They've never arrived. And I
Yeah,
think if you're at a stage where you think, that's it, I've had enough lessons, I've done enough transformation, I have arrived, guess what? You're mistaken.
you're in
And,
trouble.
and that's when there's more risk.
That's
So
right.
the humility of of a leader who knows that they can always learn from somebody else, or there will be a brick hitting them in the head when they least expect it, and to not so much that you embrace that, but you are prepared to react to it when it happens.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do this. Let's get into the book real quick. Okay, Zero to Hero. Tell me, first of all, what inspired you to write the book? Like, why do we have this book, Zero to Hero?
Whew. So I started working on my brand because a coach of mine said, you're doing all this amazing work and you want to get to the next level in your career, but everything is internal to your company. Nobody knows about what you're doing. And so this is maybe 4 years ago that he said, you need to start writing little articles and posting them on LinkedIn and let people know about some of the challenges, the trials, tribulations, the solutions, and start sharing openly. So I really owe him a great deal of um, thanks for what he did, which is ignite the fire in me. And I started writing all those mini stories. Fast forward after maybe 100 of them, or a little bit less than 100, I decided I didn't like only doing it on LinkedIn. Let me start just sharing with my own network through my 2 Cent Tuesdays
Mm,
newsletter, which is a weekly newsletter. And I think I just published my 82nd newsletter today.
wow.
And so after doing all that, I had so much content out there that I had tested my voice. And I got really, really good at understanding what's appealing from a situation. And people were responding well to that communication. And they kept telling me it's really a different perspective than what they're used to. And it was refreshing. In fact, that when I would go to conferences and I would meet somebody I hadn't seen in a while, they would reflect back on a story that I had just shared either on LinkedIn or my newsletter or whatever, and they really were moved by that. And so I said there's something there. And then last year around maybe May or April timeframe, the chants started to get louder around when are you going to write the book? And I thought it was the most ridiculous thing ever. Why the hell, with everything I am doing, why in the world would they ask me to write a book? I mean, there's enough content out there. And then
Sure.
the same coach that told me that I should do branding also gave me the worst advice ever. He said, why don't you just have AI consume all of your stories and write a book? And like that was a really good bad idea. And I
Right.
said, once I tried to see if that could work, and I said, tell me what the outline would look like. And it was phooey. It was kablooey. It was terrible. And so I said, all right, this if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. I'm all in or I'm all out. And I said, I know it's hard. People complain about writing a book all the time. But the reason I wrote the book is because I really felt a calling to help people understand how to do better around the human experience. So if I'm sharing all these stories in all these ad hoc places, what if I did concentrate them into a single body? And then it will make more sense because I have more time to unpack the journey, the why. And the really, really surprising thing for me is it came together really quickly,
Mm.
really quickly, almost record speed. So I feel like I was called to write it. I was motivated. I was driven to write this book, and I just didn't hesitate. I did it anyway. Didn't know what I was doing at the time when I started, but when it came together, I was moved in a certain way.
Well, and I'll say this for everybody that, is listening. Yeah, I read, I'm a reader, right? They know that. Anybody that listens to the show knows I read a lot of books, and the book is really good. Like your leadership thoughts, the skills that you have acquired through, climbing this ladder, it come out really good. So, and I would say this, Nora has a website, Nora Osman. Osman, Osman. I will put the website in the show notes. She has a newsletter. The 2 Cents Tuesday will be in the show notes. Tell me this. What what were the benefits of writing? Like it seems to me like, this started, like if you take the book and you go back, where did the book start? The book started with you sitting down and starting to put your thoughts on paper. And I think there is science to state the benefits of actually putting pen to paper. What were the benefits that you got from sitting down, putting your thoughts on paper, and then shoving it out there into the world?
Validation. That's like one of the biggest things that came out of it. When I started to put it into a more concerted work and I started to draw correlations and put the context together, it started to validate how far I had come along my own journey
Mm,
and how meaningful and massive those big pitfalls and those big accomplishments were and how they impacted other people too. So as you've read the book, I shared a lot of stories with other people. I didn't give them their real names, but I talked about certain characters. And today I was interviewing other leaders on this podcast. And the first question around what moved you in this book was a reference to a character that I called Z-Man. And this reader, Michael, was amazing. He said, when I heard what Z-Man called you in his motivational talk, and I said, yeah, people don't realize the impact of their words.
mm.
Words matter in such a massive way, and they can build you or they can destroy you sometimes. And so my thought was, I have a story and a lesson from my life that I want to share around different themes here. And if I could just spend time unpacking it in a way that is appealing to people, then maybe I can help them, even if I never meet them.
Yeah.
I can't be at every company, I can't coach every person, I can't mentor every person, but books have been mentors for me. And I love the ability to share some nuggets, however
Okay.
little.
Let's do this, Nora. You talked about Z-Man, and so I want to ask this question. I think we're always learning something, right? We learn what to do or we learn what not to do, but it's always a learning process. Take me through a couple of people as you're coming up, as you're growing, as you're learning. Give me two examples of, like something that I learned from somebody that had a lasting impact on me, right? And then
Yeah.
something that I learned from somebody in the opposite way. Like I just
Yeah.
know I don't want to do that to the person that I'm leading. Give me the
Yeah.
good and the bad, but the lesson out of both.
All right, you're talking about chapter 7, which is, I think I called it the essence of leadership. Oh no, how leadership shows up. I
Yes.
still haven't memorized my own lesson, my own
Sure.
titles, but there are two characters that I refer to. One is one of the best leaders I've ever followed, and I call him Mr. R. And then there's Killer K. When you get to Killer K, you hear a couple of stories about Killer K, but I didn't do it justice. There's just so
Sure.
much toxicity and in the way she showed up. What I appreciated about Mr. R was how he really made time for people. He modeled the platinum rule. And I've talked a lot about the platinum rule in the book. I think it was
Yep.
chapter 5 when I introduced it. And it is really about treating people as they want to be treated. Such a critical concept for people to get. And here we are, brainwashed to want to follow the golden rule. What a huge mistake. Why would you think everybody's like you or just like me? That would eradicate our individuality, our diversity, our value and our strengths, our weaknesses. It would make us all the same. We are not the same. We know that. So we're following a rule all our lives or applauding it or really just putting it on a pedestal when we shouldn't be. And so what he did was he spent time with people. He honored people. He got to know people. He got out of his way. And I learned that from him quite a bit, that people lean in when you lean in, when you make
Mm,
time for them, when you learn what their strengths are, what makes them tick, what their areas of concerns are, and you start to honor them by showing up for them. Now, the opposite was true of this personality called Killer K that I talk about in chapter 7. And unfortunately, it was a woman, not that
Sure.
gender matters really. It wasn't. I have had amazing women leaders as well that I followed. But what K did was dictate.
Mm,
She had to be the author of the best idea. If you don't agree with her, you were eradicated. People used to shake in their shoes. She would stomp around the building. Doors would close. Conversations would halt. People had career cul-de-sac if they expressed themselves openly. And that's very toxic. And so I learned that that is not the way to create trust, to build a team, to grow, to transform. That is what kills spirits. That's what causes stagnation. It creates really just a lot of waste and a lot of unnecessary churn. And so we see so many examples of good and bad leaders throughout, but a lot of people shy away from giving unique specific stories, either to protect people or to avoid scrutiny of their own personal behavior. I've made mistakes and I have had my own moments too. So I've shared a lot of those too in the book. So
sure.
by no means did I say I'm perfect. I've fumbled a lot. But I think we have to actually model what good is and we have to call out what bad is.
Mm,
You don't do anybody a service by calling them a shrub at the bottom of, a forest of pine trees. Now, that does not lift anybody's spirit. It doesn't help them see anything in a more futuristic or positive way, right? That's why I
yeah.
call that out.
You know what? And I think Nora, like in 2026, like that dictatorship method, like and it can work. Like you can be a dictator and run a successful team for a little while. You're probably not going to run it very successful for long because you're going to run off anybody that, is worth a crap, and I would say this with Gen Z and the group that's coming, they really not about that. Like that ain't they don't want to hear nothing about none of that stuff. So like
No.
that style is and I see it in the athletic world. The athletic coaches, the football, basketball, the guys that were the tyrants, they're not going to make it no more. Like they can't do that because now, they've got this thing called a transfer portal. So if you're going to
Mhm.
be a dictator, I will just go somewhere else. Like I'm not going to be treated like that. But what a blessing for you to learn that. Like I mean some
Yeah.
things you have to go through to learn. So there is a blessing in learning the what not to do's as well.
Absolutely. And it's also very important for leaders to recognize that they're not infallible themselves. I
Mm,
used to tease my team with two things all the time. I'd say, first of all, don't tell me where the dead bodies are buried. I don't know if I mentioned that in the book or not. I
you
think I
did.
did.
You
And
did.
it was a call to be autonomous and to exercise executive decision making, make a decision, be careful, but stand by your decision and execute. And the other thing is there are good ideas and there are really good bad ideas. And I
Yeah.
had a monopoly on good bad ideas. There's no reason for us to believe that good ideas are hierarchical. The higher up you get in the chain, the more likely you have the best ideas and everybody
Yeah.
on the bottom. No, absolutely not. The
Yeah.
people closest to the problem are likely the ones best to solve it. And you, as a leader, when you recognize who is in that line of fire and you lean in and you ask for solutions and you empower, oh my God, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
You just have to get out of the way. You got
Yeah,
to
for
let
sure.
people execute, right? Give them the ability to master something, autonomy, mastery, purpose. That part with the AMP theme is really, really important.
Well, I don't remember who it was that made the quote, that nobody really cares what until they know how much you care. And there is
Exactly.
a ton
Yeah,
of truth to that. You know what I mean? Like which is
absolutely.
what you're referring to when you refer to the platinum rule. Like you're honestly just simply saying, I got to know what's important to you. Like if I'm going to make a difference with you, I got to know, what do you like? What do you want to be,
Yeah.
coached like? How do you want to be led, right? And everybody's not the same.
Yeah. And
Everybody
just
don't
because
the same thing.
somebody's brilliant and capable doesn't mean that you are
Right.
responsible for mapping their course. I talked about a team lead, I think it was in the earlier chapters, who was perfectly happy just doing
Yes.
what he wanted, did not want to be a manager. Like that was nails on a chalkboard for him. And you know what? He was one of the people that read the book early. And he at some point said, wow, you really don't realize how much you changed my life. You
Mm,
saved me at some point. And I'm sorry, I didn't realize that, I was wigging out when I did. But when you're in somebody's corner, you know when to stop pushing. You
right.
know where their boundaries are. And when you stop pushing, it's the humane thing to do. You can only take it so far, and it's a disservice to push too far.
Yeah. Nora, let me ask you this question. This is a stupid question, okay? But I do ask stupid questions every once in a while. I've started thinking about this with my book. Somebody the other day left a comment on Facebook after a post I put on about a book. Somebody left a comment that I hope you spell my name right in the book, assuming they were in the book. And so my thought was, I don't think they're in the book. Like, why would they be? And I just, so like now you've written the book. How much have you gotten any blowback from, because Killer K probably knows who Killer K is. Like, let's be honest. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, she would have to have a thought that I'm Killer K. Or, have you had people that or has
Uh,
that not been a thing at all?
I don't know if Killer K knows that there's a book or that she's in this book. I was
Okay.
very careful with my
Sure.
wording about Killer K, but those who knew who Killer K was or experienced her absolutely knew who Killer K was. And they're like, oh my God. Because not everybody knew all these stories.
Sure.
A lot of things at the leadership level were kept behind closed doors. But
Right.
but the truth is they experienced the wrath and the aftermath of certain things. And yeah, it's very, very
So,
honest, very
needless to say, you've not had any blowback from the book.
no, I've had a lot of people said, wow, that was so truthful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And many more people said thank you for writing it that way
Yeah,
because you exposed what people needed to hear and understand
no doubt.
without going too far.
No, and that's I guess what I appreciated is like I said earlier, like you do learn from the people that you've been around. Good, bad, or indifferent. You're always learning, you know what I mean? And
Right.
that was a valuable learning experience for you.
Yeah.
Like you don't learn that if you don't go through that, like you just
No. Like some of the
sometimes
people I hired, I had to terminate were the hardest things I had to do. And I
yeah.
tell a couple stories about that, right? Sometimes people really have bad execution. They don't think through. I talk about that good intentions, shit
Yep.
execution, right? And I have that too. But you have to be accountable for your execution. Not everybody knows your intentions.
Right.
We live in this world where execution matters. And of course, there's opportunity for forgiveness and second chances, but you gotta really be eyes wide open, know what
Yeah,
you're doing, and just make sure that it's the best reflection of who you are.
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, talk to me about the skills of a leader. And in particular, let's go through the ABCs. What do the ABCs mean to you? Being authentic, being bold, and having compassion. Like what do those three, mean to you?
I used to hate hearing this one sentence from people. Oh, I'm a totally different person at home. And I'm like, why? Have you ever heard people say, oh, you should
Amen.
yeah, like he's totally on at work and he's totally off, or vice versa. And I'm thinking, how? How do you do that? How can you segregate personalities where you show up one way for one scenario on an that's way too many brain cells. There's no way.
Yeah,
That's like you being a pathological liar. I just don't have the capacity to remember all those stories and
sure.
lies. So I believe authenticity means you are who you are all the time, wherever you are. And you do not trade your soul for anything. So you show up the way you are, you do not try to be perfect and you don't try to be somebody else. I'm going to give you an aha moment. I recorded my own audiobook. I mean, this could have been a good idea or a really good bad idea, but it's done. It's behind us. It's live on Audible. I decided, let me buy it and listen to it. I should have now a customer experience, not my own author experience. So I was listening to the book as I was walking yesterday and I got through, I don't know, chapter 4 or whatever. And as I was listening, I realized, oh my God, I can never be a voice talent because this is my voice, but sometimes I enunciate the words wrong. Sometimes I put an extra pause. I've had to say the sentence, half the sentence over again, and I forgot to cut it out and splice it and all that. I didn't master it properly because it's 6 hours and 14 minutes of a book. It's a
Mm,
lot to master and get perfect. And then I said, you know what? The emotion of what I wanted them to feel, it still came through. I am not perfect. This book is not perfect. My reading of this book is not perfect. So what? Let them judge me however they judge me. And maybe I'm just being too harsh on myself. And I said, it's authentically me. Wait till they hear chapter 14. Like my voice quivers when I talk about the womanhood experience. That
sure.
was no joke. They should hear that it sounds different because it's a serious topic, right?
Mm,
And so that's authenticity. It's just not worrying about the persona and the image of you.
yeah, I love that. And there's two traits. If I've interviewed 150 leaders on this podcast, there's two traits that I find most appealing and probably um, come up more frequently than anything else. And authenticity is number one. And number two is being able to be vulnerable, being able to be who you are all the time and not have to wear this perfect hat that you're always right, that you're always, doing the, no, you're not, like, and being able to own your mistakes. Like,
Yeah.
how does a leader get more buy-in from a team than walking in front of the team and saying, you know what, man, I jacked that up. That ain't right. Like I jacked that up, but we're gonna get it right. You know what I mean? Being vulnerable and
Yeah.
being honest is two traits that are huge.
People make a mistake in thinking that, if you're the leader, you have to be right all the time and you can't have mistakes because if you show mistakes, it shows a weakness. If you show weakness, people won't follow you, they won't respect
Hmm.
you. BS.
Yeah, no
Capital
doubt.
B, capital S.
No doubt.
The challenge here is, I think, knowing where to draw the line. There's being vulnerable and then there's being naked vulnerable. You don't want
Sure.
to be naked vulnerable and that's not necessary. But as far as vulnerability, absolutely. You have to show that you don't have all the answers or that you're struggling with things. When I was leaving my organization, the last place, I was really, really attached to my team. I was the first leader to be released as part of a layoff. I was really, really worried about the people that I was leaving, and I couldn't do much more to guide them or protect them at that point. And they heard it and they saw it in the way I talked. And if I got teary-eyed, so be it. I was being vulnerable and I shared how I really felt. I will not be apologetic for that because that's who I am. But ironically, I had a friend of mine, a pretty close friend, said, wow, I can't believe you wrote this book. She said, that is really, really exposure. That's really vulnerable. I
Yeah.
could never do that. And I thought, yeah, I guess you really couldn't because we're just so different people. And I feel that the only way to help is to share and to be vulnerable.
There's no doubt about that. All right, talk to me about the B. What does boldness mean to you?
Boldness is knowing that it's uncomfortable and it's uncharted territory and doing it anyway. It's just getting past your trepidations. So many people are fearful of getting out of their comfort zone. And that is really, really shackling and exhausting. Now, maybe because I'm an Aries, I'm a fire sign, like we are a cardinal fire sign. It's just not in my DNA to have that much trepidation. So perhaps that's just how I'm wired.
Yeah.
But I feel exhausted by watching people overthink. God help us. Can we please make a decision? Go for it. It's okay. You're gonna screw up. We all do. Take some action. Be bold. I hate the amount of, you know, hesitation and time that people take to overthink everything. So I do think strong leaders, they take bold action.
Yeah.
They know that they're going to crack some eggs to make that omelet. And you have to. You cannot be safe all the time and make everything democratic. Now, doesn't
Amen.
mean you have to be autocratic or, insane and do everything shooting from the hip. I'm not saying be extremely the opposite, but there is definitely a sweet spot where you can take calculated risk and move quickly.
I love
And I will
that.
say 9 out of 10 times when I've done that, it has served me. That 10%, boy, was that really awful. But I would not trade those 90% of successes for that 10% safety.
Amen.
No way. Yeah,
Very good.
yeah.
All right. Give me the C, ABC. Give me the compassion.
Passion.
What does that mean?
It's leading with heart.
Mm,
Look, we don't all know what everybody else is going through, but being curious enough to ask, to witness, to look, to listen, to learn, to try to be a human being for the other person. Not everything that people are going to tell you is going to feel good or sound right or make you really excited. But when you're compassionate and you can walk through a person's shoes for even a second, it really makes a difference.
mm.
And I did share stories about people telling me strangest things. I mean, I do actually hear things that I'm not supposed to hear. It's bizarre, but people tell me their deepest secrets, and I'm like, I don't want to know this. I hope I forget this. Uh, but things like a person calling me up on a Monday saying, "Hey, I'm not coming in because I'm drunk. I partied too much the night before." Why would you tell your boss that you're drunk? Well, you know
Right.
what? Good for you. Stay home. Do not take the keys. I want to see you the day after safely, right? But I'm not going to go tell somebody, oh, my person was irresponsible and got drunk and didn't think about their responsibility the next day.
Right.
Maybe they won't even remember they told me that. But at the end of the day, I'm compassionate because I understand that sometimes you do party too much. Sometimes you do have a moment to celebrate and you take it too far. That does not define you forever.
No doubt about it. I love that. And I think, just being able to understand that you don't really can comprehend what other people are going through. Just because somebody has a smile on walking down the hallway don't mean that they're happy, right? Like being able to have some compassion and truly care is, a
Yeah.
very strong leadership skill. There is no doubt about that. Okay. All right. Coach me up. What's a hero moment and what's a zero moment? And how did you land on the title of the book?
That's a really good question. So when I was getting trained for my first manager role, I found one of the best books to get trained on managing a help desk. And I don't remember the book name or whatever, but I remembered learning about moments of truth. Every interaction with a customer is a moment of truth. And so I really embraced that and I said, okay, so that means that's your litmus test every time you interact with a customer. But then I thought over the years, well, you've got internal customers. Those are your employees in the company. You've got your staff, you've got your boss. Everybody's a customer. That means our humans, our customers. Every person you interact with is a customer. Every interaction with a human is a moment of truth. And it's true, we are always being tested as humans. And so that was originally going to be the title of the book, Moments of Truth in the Human Experience. And then I realized that I'd been talking about zero moments and hero moments in my newsletter. Actually, I do a spotlight. The first part of my newsletter is always either a hero moment or a zero moment, like 90% of the time. And so I said, well, what if I make it about those zero moments and how they could be hero moments, or how you're a hero moment and then it turns into a zero moment? Because it's a split second thing that happens. And people don't realize how fragile that moment is. And so that's where the title came from, Zero to Hero. And I went to a hybrid publisher and they said, you do realize that that is not a unique title, Zero to Hero. And I'm like, what? What do you mean it's not unique? And then they showed me like, I don't know, there's like 50 other books with the title Zero to Hero, but there's always a subtitle. So I said, yeah, that's okay, because I'm not unique and this book will be special in its own way and fine. And we debated a little bit about the second part, and I really wanted to put the moments of truth in there, but that got thrown out the window because of whatever, SEO and word matches and all that. I did screw up because I was so latched on to those words, moments of truth, that the reason why my Audible book took 4 rounds, the last round of rejection was because when I was reading the title of the book in the credits in the beginning and the end, I still called it Moments of Truth. So the guy in the QA, he's like, "What? Is it the thing? You're the hero, the human experience. Where the hell is this Moments of Truth thing?" They spit it back, and it cost me 2 weeks in my
Wow.
journey. It delayed the book getting out for 2 weeks because of one big snafu where I just
Right.
that was my zero moment.
That's funny. All right, give me, as you sit there right now, Nora, give me your last zero moment and your last hero moment.
My last zero moment, I had a meltdown. I talked about this meltdown a little bit with this lady from the Department of Social Security. I wanted desperately to get my mom's 1099. My mom cannot interact with people in a normal way anymore. And I said, "How hard can it be? Let me just get on the electronic form. I could download it, blah, blah, blah." Well, it took an act of God. They overcomplicated all of these permission things and all of the validation entries. And I found myself practically yelling at this woman at the end of a 40-minute conversation because I did not understand why I needed to take my mom with Alzheimer's to an office so that I could get a printout of a 1099 when I've got every article they could possibly need. And it was a process limitation. And you could tell me, oh my God, it's just the government and they want to protect you and all that. But they overcomplicated the process to where a real human trying to do the right thing just can't get it. But I call it a zero moment because I should have realized that she was just doing her job.
Mm,
I didn't need to get angry with her. But being a caregiver for two elderly parents, you have those moments where you just can't. One more thing,
yep.
it just tips you over and you're off the deep end and you just melt down. So that was my last zero moment.
Give me your last hero moment.
12 o'clock today, I was hosting a digital dialogue podcast, and I had the most amazing experience talking to 3 people that took a chance on me with this book and talked about how it really touched them. They told stories about my stories and their reflection. And I truly felt that, yes, I wrote this book for a reason and not just a season. And this book was meant to be written, it was meant to be heard, it's meant to move on because of its purpose. And so that moment, sharing the limelight with these amazing giants, leaders, and hearing them talk about it was a true hero moment for me.
Really, really, really good.
Yeah.
Okay, you have led some high performing teams. Okay, so let's talk for a second. High performance teams. What what makes up a high performance team? Like, what are some of the characteristics of a team that can perform at a very high level?
Varying unique strengths. Without a doubt, you cannot have a team that has all the same strengths. You have to have players with different strengths so that they can be in their area of strength and they complement each other. And when people see other people's strengths complementing their own, there's this energy that forms and people start to get excited. One, they learn from the other people too, so they start to improve in those areas, but they also feel proud that they have a strength to contribute to the team. So that's one of the most critical cornerstones for a strong team. But I did coin this thing, and I don't know where I put my little card, but I had these five core values that I used in my last company, and we call them the five P's. It starts with passion, purpose, pride, positivity, and patience. Not in
Mm.
that order, but it ends with pride, but it's always those five. And we latched on to this because those were the values that my team really exemplified and what we really wanted to model and protect over time. And it's what worked for us. It was our formula.
I love it. I'm a core value guy. I think core values are like the bumper plates in a bowling alley, right? It's the things that keep you in the right lane. When I have three personal core values myself, and I use them to help me make decisions when I'm not sure because
Yeah.
that's who I say I am. That's what's important to me. So,
I
I
love it.
love that. I love that you did that. I want to ask you about this, and we're gonna round this thing up. We're gonna bring it in, okay, for a landing. But I run across this quote. I think you made this up, but I'm not sure. You might have, you might not have. But I think it's really good. Do what's right and not what's easy. What's easy isn't always right, and what's right isn't always easy.
Oh, absolutely. I made that. I've been saying that for probably 20 years. And by the way, do what's right and not just what's easy, because the just word makes a difference. A lot of people just want the easy button.
Yes.
It's okay. Sometimes you need some easy, but don't just do what's easy. You need to do what's right as well.
Mm.
So this is the lesson is that, yeah, you're going to have to do a lot of hard stuff. And the magic happens when you put yourself into that uncomfortable space where you're doing what's hard. Writing this book was hard. Putting myself in a vulnerable state where I shared stories that there are stories in chapter 14 that I don't think my son and daughter have read them yet. When they get there, they're like, "Oh my God, you told them what?" You know?
Sure.
Yeah, I think you may know what I'm talking about. But this is what makes a difference. The doing the hard, because that's the realm of leadership.
Yeah.
Leadership do what's what's right, not just doing things right.
Yeah. I love that. We have a newly adopted motto in our football program, and I kind of stole it. They don't know it because these 15, 16-year-old kids ain't never heard of John Maxwell, right? But one of his sayings is everything worthwhile is uphill.
Exactly.
Everything. And so
Exactly. Oof, I love that one.
with our team, I will say everything worthwhile is uphill, and then they will repeat
Yeah.
everything because if it's easy, it's probably not
Not
worth
worth it.
anything. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like anything worth anything is gonna be uphill. It's gonna be hard. It's not gonna be easy.
Yeah. And you know what? There was an episode recently that I listened to. I want to say it was maybe 3 months ago. That was also mind-blowing. And I want to say it was around questioning when you go down that path of entrepreneurship, but I don't think it's limited to entrepreneurship. He said you have to ask yourself three questions. What price are you willing to pay?
Mm,
How long are you willing to stay? And what relationships are you willing to slay?
mm,
Right? And that goes for anything that's hard, that is worthwhile. You're going
mm.
to have to do a ton of time boxing and going at it without results yet. And that's where the uphill battle is. You're fighting yourself. You're building resistance and resilience. And that is so exhausting.
Nor, where people are cheated in this world is, when you see the leaders in the world like you, or when you see these professional athletes, or when you see people that are the CEOs of companies. That's what we see. But what we don't see is the path that it took to get there. Like there was a lot of hard work. There was a lot of overcoming. There was a lot of setbacks, failures, twists, turns, but we don't see that. Like what we see is the end result, and
Overnight success. Yes,
we
I
think
know.
that person just fell there, right? Like
No,
that's not the way it happens at
not
all.
at all. Not at all. Even writing, I get asked a lot, how do you write so much? Yeah, I gotta put time and energy into this. I gotta sit down. I gotta remember, oh my God, that event, that thing that happened. Let me remember to write that. I have to park it on a notepad. I gotta put time into unpacking that. And sometimes I toss it. That is time. It's
Yeah,
not gonna happen in one sitting and 5 seconds and you're done. If it
right.
does, it probably isn't that great.
Amen.
Yeah.
Do you have a writing plan? Like, do you have a time of the day on a daily basis? Is there a routine? Do you have a plan that works best for you?
Yeah, I get boxed into Monday night because my newsletter goes out Tuesday and it ends up being Monday night for some reason. Sometimes if I'm really proactive, it's Sunday, but if I'm really, really, really disciplined, I start to take little stories throughout the week and I just park them in my OneNote so that I have a little bit of what it is. But I will not say that everything happens exactly the same every week. I wish it was that easy. It is not.
Sure. All
Yeah,
right. A tough question, probably, because I find this as a tough question when I get asked.
I like tough questions.
What's a couple of books that you've read that just stand out to you for whatever reason?
You mean the ones I mentioned in the book?
No,
I love a lot of books, but I will say that I love John C. Maxwell, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. That's one of my favorites. I also love Dale Carnegie books.
yeah,
So How to Win Friends
and influence
and
people.
Influence People. I also like Stephen Covey,
Mm,
The Seven Habits of Highly Effective Leaders, and Stephen M.R. Covey, which is
yep,
Trust and Inspire. Love that book.
yep,
I do like Mel Robbins, and believe it or not, the earlier books were more impactful in my journey, at least. So the 5 second rule, for instance.
right,
And of course, have to mention Simon Sinek, one of the most impactful leaders and writers for me to follow when I really embarked on that leadership transformation myself.
right.
I would have to say he had the biggest influence on me maturing as a leader because that concept of start with why came to me right as I was about to start my biggest challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are a few, and my God, I could just show you my bookcase and you can get the rest of them off of that.
I love that. That Start with Why book was one that I don't know why, sometimes books hit you at a certain time and like it was very instrumental in me, in being able to figure out what's my purpose, like why am I doing the things I'm doing, setting my core values and all of that. A lot of that came from that book for sure. So,
You want to hear something funny? For decades, I would be laughed at by my family and friends because I always had these self-help books. I would go on vacation and I would take a book of that nature, not a fiction book and a novel. I would take one of those things and start with why I took on a cruise right before I started my new job. And I was fascinated by that book. I probably read it in like no time.
yeah,
But I knew that that book was meant for me for my future journey. So sometimes you find books at the
yeah,
time that you need to find them, and they really do have an impact. It's like finding a mentor, one-on-one mentoring in private that you can go back to over and over. And
yeah.
that is the power of these books.
No doubt about it. Well, Nora, it's been a pleasure. I'm so thankful that you took the time and made the time to come on and do this. I'm very thankful for you. I think what you're doing is amazing. I think your book's amazing. So I want to encourage everybody that's listening to buy the book, Zero to Hero. Go on her website, noraosman.com, which I will put in the show notes. Sign up for her newsletter. Like I think she's one of the best leaders that we have had on this podcast. And and I mean that. Like I think the book's really good. I think, your path to where you have gotten has been fantastic. And, I'm
Thank,
super, super thankful that you took the time and made the time to
thank
come
you.
on.
And I have to mention that if they go on Goodreads right now, there are, I think, 10 days left on the Goodreads sweepstakes. They're giving away 100 copies of the ebook for free. So
Awesome.
if your listeners are okay with an electronic copy, they might actually get it for free. So
That's
you
fantastic.
never know. All
I
right. Well, thank
appreciate
you
that,
so much,
Nora.
John. I really appreciate such thoughtful, deep questions. I've enjoyed this. This has been fun.
I appreciate you. And I appreciate everybody that takes the time to listen to this show. If I can ever help you, my email and cell phone numbers in the show notes. Holler at me. Until next time, adios, amigos. Hey, you know what?